And then if I can get all of this to work, I just found a thing that I can access that, because I actually have more than one of these cameras. So I'll be able to sort of use both the cameras and then build it up. But we'll see. We'll see.
And what are those cameras?
They're called Mevos. All right.
Evos?
Yeah, I think we may be live right now. Hi. If we are
Right.
live. Yeah, I believe we are
Sweet.
live because I hit the publish button.
Okay.
Just trying to invent some stuff here, folks. Bear with us as we sort of get prepared for the show. We weren't entirely sure how all of the setup was working, so I hit some buttons and apparently we may be live right now. So as we're sitting here, that's Al. I'm AJ, for those of you just popping in for the first time. We're going to have a fun conversation sort of about art and culture and music and all of the neat things that Al's been doing. You know what? Why don't, instead of me introducing you, Al, why don't I give you an opportunity to talk to the audience? Tell them who you are, about the bands and that kind of thing. And while you're doing that, I'm going to check all the technical stuff here, and maybe we can kill two birds with one stone.
Sure.
That way.
Sure. So the name's Al Yeti Bones. I've been playing in stoner rock bands probably for the last 20, 25 years. I started off in Mr. Bones back in 1998, 1999. And we released 4 albums. Then went into Georgian Skull. We released 2 albums. Record labels. We're on some, doing some. We had like solid backing. What was that? What was that about?
No, oh, that was the video. So I'm
cool.
now sharing it out on Facebook so that
Oh, nice,
people
nice,
can,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were on Obscure Somber Records from Montreal, and then Scarlet Records SPV from Italy and Europe, and then E1 here in North America. Then after Georgian Skull, went into a band called the Mighty Nimbus, which featured other players from the bands Pentagram, 60 Watt Shaman, Alabama Thunder Pussy, and
Alabama Thunder Pussy. That's a great name.
Greatest name for sure. For sure. And,
You know what's funny? Alabama. Do you know the band Alabama Shakes?
Yeah.
Okay, so the lead singer for that, Brittany Howard, has a punk rock band called Thunder Bitch. So
Cool.
interesting. I don't know, but anyway.
That's awesome.
So, I think we've finally got all of this stuff happening
Okay.
here. So for those of you who are sitting in and viewing with us, once again, my name's AJ. This is Al. He was just kind of giving you the history of his bands. Dude, thank you for coming and joining me here on my teeny tiny deck.
I love it.
As the joke goes. For those of you who are tuning in who have wondered where the podcast has been, I decided to sort of take a break from a lot of this even before the COVID thing started. So it was an interesting roll in. As soon as COVID sort of hit, we did a couple of live streams, but mostly I was taking a break. And I think just for me, this whole time has been an opportunity to just kind of recharge. And this is just kind of an ease back into the idea. So I want to thank you. I know we talked about it a little before, but I want to thank you for being a guinea pig on the new version of the show here.
No problem.
For those of you who are longtime viewers of the podcast, or listeners actually, this is the 3rd time you've been on the show. First time was way back when we were just audio. I think it was within the first 10 or 15 episodes. And then again, we did sort of a group chat. And as I sort of said to you before we sat down, I'm really interested to be able to sit and have this conversation with you again, now like 4 years later from the original, because my understanding and sort of immersion into what is the music industry in Canada has definitely changed over the last 4 years. I'm really interested in, you've named off all of the bands that you've been in.
Half.
Yeah, half. So yeah, not even. But
Yeah.
you've already listed a bunch of the bands that you've been in. I know you've spent your lifetime sort of on the road and immersed in music and immersed in art, even while doing the regular job battle and all that kind of thing. I want to know what your perspective on the shift in the industry, but not just the digital shift in the industry like we've talked about before, but like where it might be going for independent artists right now. Because I have a definite thought on it, but you've been so involved in the business side of it. I wonder what your perspective on that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. To be honest with you, one of the biggest
Touch
shifts,
the
or
microphone.
oh, sorry, one of the biggest shifts I see is that it's very hard. It's very hard to answer because things have changed so much in the last couple of months.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where I don't see an end to this.
Yeah,
You
nor
know,
do I.
I don't see that exclusivity is going to be, one of the main culprits in live shows, and 20 people in a club, distanced, and you're playing for people who have paid maybe $50 to see you now, rather than $5, just to cover some other, you can't charge the same amount anymore, like you're not gonna even be able to fit that many people in there, and people aren't gonna come in with masks, and they're not gonna stay away from each other, and it's all so different now. So
Oh, I think it sort of compounds
it's a
on
weird-
itself in the fact that, like you and I both know, like the live music scene in and of itself for bands,
yeah,
was already kind of on a downtrend, right? Like it was already really difficult for bands to get in.
Yeah. I always thought that my touring days were behind me because there is this level now of logical thinking that brings me to to thoughts of like we can only do shows that make sense now. Before it was like get in the van and ride and go, and you can put together another tour in a couple weeks and then get right back out there and keep doing it. And those people that went to see you last time will show up to that one, and maybe they'll bring other people and stuff. But like, now it's just it's like I'm not even interested in doing. Like our last show was in Montreal in December 15th, I think, and I chose to fly because it was like, and one of the other guitar players flew as well, because it was like we can't be in the van anymore, like for those
Right.
long treks, and it's like it's not anything personal to anybody, it's just my own anxiety and like my own confinement. Like I mean, okay, flying in a tube essentially is pretty confining too, but like being in a van for I don't know, let's say like there and back 20 hours,
It loses its shine,
I
right?
can't do it anymore. Yeah,
There was a time when that was the thing that you look
it's all
forward
you would
to.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm in this weird spot with that idea of it in that, because I drive when I'm not driving around, trying to do interviews and stuff. I'm in a truck driving around.
Yeah.
And the driving around part doesn't bother me. I don't have a problem with that. It's all of the bullshit that goes around with it. I love this part of it, this conversation, right?
Yeah.
I love traveling out, going to Florida to interview Vanilla Ice, going to Montreal to interview Tea Party.
Yeah.
The interviews are great, and that experience is awesome. But the travel for all of that is a real, still, like for me, a piece that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
All the rest of it, all the business side of it, all of the chasing money and begging people for money, and then being promised stuff, and then having having it pulled out at the last minute, which is all like, it's not like, that's not a my story. That's every artist trying to do this stuff story.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten to that point too, where the logistics of it all just really, really have to make sense, and then outside of that, it's like the travel. I don't want to say that I don't like it. I still miss it, but it's like there's this level of anxiety that comes over me now, where it's like I'm just thinking about like getting home to my family safe and sound, and I think to myself, I'm like, I'm in the van, and I'm like imagining like us rolling over, and I think to myself, I'm like, I think I'm the only one in this car or in this van that has life insurance, and like my mind is like elsewhere now, it's like it's not on the game, it's not on the show, it's not on the
You
gear.
fucked up and grew up.
That's it, man. That's honestly, that's all it is, and then it's like, with trying to make sense out of just a career moving forward after all of this. Like, I don't want to be one of those people that kind of undermines the whole situation and be like, oh, it's fucking bullshit, whatever, I'm gonna keep doing what I do. I remember reading a tweet the other day, Chuck Woolery, The Love Connection, 2 and 2, be right back at you. That guy, like he tweeted something about like COVID being
Be
a
a
hoax,
hoax, and then
the
his
next
son
day
got it.
his son got it,
Yeah.
and like he's like completely changed his tune.
Like changed, like put out a tweet that said this is very real, and then deleted his Twitter account.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It's weird. We live in a strange world. But here's the thing. I don't want to dwell on all the fucking problems
Cool.
because I just wanted to underline something because I knew all of what we were about just saying to be true. But what interests me most is none of that is stopping you from creating.
Me.
You.
Yeah.
Because the touring might be the business side that you've spent your entire life chasing, and the idea, and that's sort of the thought that I want to put out there.
Yeah.
Because that is what's changing right now.
Yeah.
I think you're not going to be able to look at it the way you looked at it before, but you've kept going with your creativity. Talk to me about. I want to talk about. So you've got your solo album that's out.
Yes.
Talk to me about that a little bit.
Once all of this lockdown stuff started, I went into the basement and I started writing songs.
So this
right
really
away.
is the guitar player took COVID and went into his basement and wrote all his songs.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wasn't sure if this was stuff that you were working on prior to.
No.
Okay.
No. But what makes it unique, what makes the album unique, is that I started sending it off to a bunch of people to add ideas, and I wanted to explore that kind of realm with this record. But what had actually happened was, people get the songs and then they sit on them, and it's like a couple weeks go by and I have to and so you know what, I was like, this may not fly for me, it's not right, this isn't what I do. So I dipped into old external hard drives and I pulled old sessions, Pro Tools sessions of songs that were never released or may even have been released. I can't even remember. But what I do is I strip the drums off of those songs, and then I was writing new songs to those drums. So the groove and the pocket are kind of weird. They're not always on the 1. They're not always on the 2 and the 4. It's just these accents come out of nowhere, and if you listen to it carefully, and knowing the secrets behind how it was created, because I did all the guitars and the bass and some keys, and then I sent out to Mark Calcott to do keys for real.
Oh,
and
nice.
Then, and then only one drummer sent back a tune, 16 or maybe 20 tracks of drums, you know what I mean, professionally, he gave it back, Cam Fleury, and he sent me this stuff, and he's a YouTube guy, and he's doing pretty well for himself.
And Cam's local too, right?
Yeah. I think just outside of Windsor.
Yeah, cool. Did he do some stuff with Glenn?
He did.
Is
Yeah.
that how he got started? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so so we did a tune, and then I had Dan Moore from Chevy, who was one of my idols, growing up, from out east, play a guitar solo on one of the songs, and Jeff Phillips from Kitty and Thine Eyes Bleed played another solo on another song, and that was where I capped it, with extra people, and basically just wrote on top of. These are one time over, so if I was to I would never be able to play these live because I can't even remember the songs, I can't even remember how to play them, because it was I'm literally writing a riff to fit this groove, and I'm writing another riff to fit this intro, and then I'm writing a riff to fit this part where the drums get louder and stuff, and it doesn't work all the time, sit on it, and then the next day I rewrite it, and then I'm finding that the song's almost done, and
It's a whole new creative. It's a whole different creative process,
yeah,
right?
and I just left it at that. I put vocals after, the bass and stuff, and then had it mixed by Nick Kinnish, who did our last album, our last Gypsy Chief Goliath record, and so he was mixing it and letting me know that there's a lot of guys that do this, they do it like this. It's not that unusual, because there's some guys that have this prolific writing style, and other people around them can't keep up, so, and it's not anybody around me can't keep up, but what it is that I'm literally in the fucking basement,
yeah,
riffing and firing through 15, 16 songs.
It's not that they can't keep up because because they aren't capable. They can't keep up because they aren't there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the style of 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 this kind of creating is unusual to some people who are used to being in a room with everybody, having to create that way. You know.
It's so similar to me to, especially because you're talking about a digital sort of, studio environment. It's so similar to me to photography, because that's what when I started teaching myself Photoshop and Lightroom and all of that stuff. What what blew my mind is how much of it is just figuring it out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like 90% of the work is just figuring it out, and then afterwards people go, "Well, how'd you do that?" And you kind of sit there and go, I don't really know."
Yeah.
And then you got to kind of go back and play with it again and try to get it again.
Yeah.
And we talked last time about just how prolific of a writer you are. Like, you were talking about still having like binders full of song lyrics that you were working on when you were 17 years old.
Yeah.
So this has been your whole life.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I would pull those out from time to time and use them as like benchmarks to start with. You know, if I'm gonna start like writing a tune or whatever, and like there's no words coming to me or anything like that, it's like, oh, that's where I'll start. You know, is I'll pull out some old shit and then.
Did you have somebody either as a mentor or as a teacher that sort of like guided you as an artist, or did you just kind of like bounce your head off of walls?
Yeah, for a while you bounce you bump your head off walls, expecting, you know, things to be different, right? And then but I think where I went, I was able to I was granted some opportunities that I didn't let be squandered, you know, like I was able to like do these tours in the US and join bands of like members that I highly respected and highly loved and appreciated at times where, like, you know, the internet was just starting to like really boom. So it was like, you know, the level of like admiration I had for some of these guys was, you know, through the roof, right? And so me getting to be in a position where I'm now in a room with them in Minnesota, and we're rehearsing every day before we go out on a tour, where like we're gonna play this festival that you know, the same night as like Mastodon played, you know. So it's like, to me, I'm put in this position where I can't be the one to fuck this up. You know what I mean? I have to learn the songs that they wrote as if I wrote them, and that job, you know, has to come first, and take it very, very seriously. I don't fuck things up too bad, you know, and when I get an opportunity, I try to add, but like, I know my spot in that band, you know. And I'm speaking of the Mighty Nimbus, but like, that band made me grow. Like, every time I came back off a tour with that band, I would directly like put everything I learned, you know, from Crowbar and from Entombed and from all these other bands that we played with, that I highly admired, you know, since 15, 14 years old. So I was able to like watch these guys every single night, and some of these guys came up with us every night and played songs with us, you know, and as guest spots on the tour. And that's very memorable for people when they come and see us, or, you know, even 10, 15 years later, I'm being put in touch with somebody else who saw us play in Philadelphia, you know. And so it was like very fucking cool. But like, at the same time, being able to, you know, see where I can grow, you know, was a massive opening for me. It was I can directly implement what I'm learning into my own stuff.
How did you...
The easiest riff in the world
Right.
can be made complicated and complex if you add harmonies to it. So when I started listening to Thin Lizzy, to me, everything that's like chugging away, you know, everybody can play this riff, or you can write, like, everybody writes riffs in our genre very similarly. Like, there are riffs there that I refuse to play because, or grooves that I refuse to play because it's stuff that I started playing when I was 15.
Right.
Not condescendingly, you know, that like, oh, I don't do that.
Right.
You know, not like that. But I mean, that riff is so redundant that, but with a new life, it can be brought in with harmonies on top of that. You start adding two harmonies onto like the cheapest, easiest riff you can write, all of a sudden this thing opens up into this new world. And
Where
you
did
know,
that idea come from?
Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, and the Mighty Nimbus. I mean,
Yeah.
not saying that those riffs were easy; they weren't.
Right.
But the grooves,
The reasons behind what you had to play started having to
fuck,
kick in.
man. Yeah, it was like, it was just all these things were starting to open up. It was like, why am I thinking of writing something that is so above my playing? But if I do something like this, where it's just, I remember that there is a groove and there is an emotion and there is a feeling behind such a simplistic riff, how else can we add to this simplistic riff to make it cooler? Drop tune, like low tuning, play it slower.
Most people
you
start
know.
by adding more notes, and you
Right.
got to kind of learn to let those notes
Right.
go away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then add on top of that second guitar. You know,
Right.
use the second guitar for more notes. You know, add those harmonies in it and stuff, and it's just all so emotional. And then, you know, you can get there. You know, that way. And it's like, as long as you know what you're doing and know how to do it and you do it well, you know, I never changed. That's another thing too. It's like, I watched bands I went to high school with ended up going and doing really big things. You know, and but I also watched them in high school while I was like this long-haired kid playing Black Sabbath. They were playing the Flavor of the Week every
Right.
month, right? Like, it was, they were changing, their bands were changing, their styles were changing, they were being called posers, they were like, you know, whatever. And then it didn't matter, because in 10 years from then they were laughing, right? Like, they made it,
Yeah.
you know. And then 10 years later after that, they're in debt to the label for $100,000, you know. So it's like,
Yeah, made it is a really interesting term
Fuck.
when you start learning what that really means, right?
right,
Because that part of the story very rarely gets out there.
That's right.
Because it's not glamorous whatsoever. Like the fact that every time you turn around to find out that you made it, you got screwed over doesn't.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
it does, and you know, more bands, I think they know what's up, you know, and more bands are opting out to do it themselves. It's cool. I always liked having a label behind me, because, you know, you could get global distribution and I didn't have to work for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't have to sink those deals in. I didn't have to make sure that everything gets shipped out.
It's
Fuck, I don't
it's
wanna do
it's such a weird juggle though, because it's like every time you decide, and you really do, you have to, along the way, especially if you're going to do this as an independent artist, you have to decide what jobs you're going to take on yourself, ones that you know how to do, ones that
Yeah.
you don't know how to do,
Yep.
all of that. And then you have to decide what jobs you're going to hand off to other people, and every time you decide to hand a job off to somebody else, you're dancing on that rope. It's the trust game, right? How far can I give them? What am I asking to do? Can I trust them to come through with what they're saying they're going to do? And at the end, if they have anything to do with money, how bad are we going to get screwed?
Yeah, sure.
Talk to me about some of the lessons you've learned along that line, because you've played all of these games.
Yeah. I know that. Like, being in a band has to operate on almost multiple levels, just like a business does. Like, you have your groundwork, you know, where you're touring and you're playing shows, and then you have your upper echelon business stuff, the marketing and, you know, the networking and the deals and all that stuff.
The band itself is
Then-
a little bit different, because then you have a core that you're trusting, and so
Sure.
you have to learn to build that core too. But then
Absolutely.
even you have to go outside of that. It starts to be a problem.
Yeah. I think that when you start doing things all on your own, you do have to have a certain level of trust. But everybody's got to have, like, they got to match your work ethic too, you know. And if they don't, then you're just like, almost take on this like project manager role, you know. And the people who are working with you, if you're delegating and they're not getting things done, or they're not producing at that level, in a business you'd fire them, you know, or they're not cutting it, you know. But in a band, it's a little different, because you've got, you know, these different levels of, you know, achievements and things where, you know, yeah, the guy knows his stuff on guitar, you know, so he should probably just play guitar, you know. And you want to leave it at that, so that you don't overwhelm people, you know,
Right.
because what they're feeling, you know, they'll leave you, you know, they'll leave if, like, they're not having a good time, right? So
I think you're specifically now talking about being a band leader, though. I don't think everybody in a band thinks about it that way.
no,
You like it's when it's your project.
Yeah, I guess.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I always wanted it to be everybody's, but I had this intimate affection, that was, just probably on a different level than others, in the band. So it was a bit different for me, but lessons. There's so many, but no, I mean, I wrote a book about it. Like
And that was the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. So about over a year ago now, right? You started putting these posts up, these 5 a.m. posts. How long ago did you start doing that?
a year and a half ago.
Yeah, right. And I started
18
noticing.
months.
I started noticing them pop up, and they were all sort of like, it was like wake up at 4 a.m. or 4:30 or whatever,
Yeah.
and just kind of write your first thoughts out and kind of put them out publicly. And they were all
Yeah.
kind of, they were all positive.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just like, oh fuck, today sucks. It was like, it was thoughtful.
Yeah.
How did that get started?
I wanted to get in the best shape of my life before 40.
Right.
That was like my thing. I turned 40 on Wednesday.
Happy birthday, my
Thank
friend.
you, sir. And
Cheers.
cheers. And I started getting Reiki being done to me for like a stress reliever. And I started feeling great, and almost instantly from that. And then, I don't know, there was a shift in me. Like I needed to lose weight. I was in the worst shape of my life, and I needed to take this seriously, And the next day, I started reading and learning about the ketogenic diet, and as far as everything that kind of transpired after that, I learned about it before I jumped into it. I listened probably to like hundreds of episodes of podcasts and stuff to learn about it. I started reading all the science behind it, really, really understanding it from the inside out. Why we're doing this, why we do this, how it works, how does it biohack you, like how does it work, and I started learning all about that. Then it was like I began reading some of those books, and I noticed that like a lot of this stuff that's going on is internal. It's a mental mind change that you have to have too. Like, it's like the expressing of gratitude and being thankful for what you have, and not always
All the hokey shit.
yeah, I guess.
Which
yeah.
no,
But like not being pissed off because you don't have
But
what
you,
want.
you and I both come from a place where, and I think this to be true,
Sure.
where prior to sort of getting a real grasp on what gratitude really is, that's what it was. It was all that hokey shit.
Yeah.
It was all that hippy dippy bullshit that
For sure.
those people talk about, right?
Yeah, but it's very real. It's very real. It's you know what isn't real is festering and ruminating about bullshit that
Right.
hasn't happened yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Worried about what the fuck is tomorrow going to look like if today sucks so bad, and,
Right.
and what's in what am I going to be in 5 years from now? Like that shit ain't real. That's as made up as the thoughts that made them up, and being able to deliver on like an execution every single day, that's where it's like when you can lay down at night and say, fuck, today was crazy, crazy. I did so much to get to where I need to be. In that mentality, I had it through band stuff, but I always said to myself, if I could just redirect my focus into a career where it was like where I had that work ethic, that I applied to being in a band. If I could just apply that to something else, I'd make it, in whatever realm
Right.
I was going into, and then it's like it happened to be like with, like fitness and diet and like, just trying to live to what I want, to like my standard, my new standard that I had, like I was really, really pushing for that 40. I want to be in the best shape, and am I the lightest I've ever been at 40? Like, no, I'm not. Like I've, when I was training in jiu-jitsu, way lighter,
Right.
Probably by 15 pounds, but it's like, I also smoked cigarettes every day, then I drank every day,
Right.
I smoked weed every day. It was like, that whole time is, I can't go back to that.
Different people too, right?
Yeah.
I fell on this question early on in the podcast, and it's the idea of, I've heard people ask the question about, what would you go back and say to your, to your old self or whatever. But I like spinning it on its head, and that's, if you went back and met your old self, what would that person think about you today?
Nice. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I think he'd think he's like a cool dude. Like nothing that hasn't changed.
Right.
Like, but I think that there's a level of like, I think I'd be surprised at myself, with what I've achieved, but also where.
And also what we didn't achieve.
Totally, like where we didn't go.
Right.
What we didn't. I thought that I was gonna fucking be on the road forever. I thought I was gonna be in like a massive band, and we were gonna like. But then it's like the needs, that like that was all ego need. It was all ego driven, where it's like now humanistic like things that like I just love and I need on a daily basis ruled. Like that reigned supreme. It won. Family won.
Yeah, I've got a lot of that too, and there was
Kids,
there was a
wife
battle,
won.
man. It was a real battle too. Was it a struggle for you figuring out the Family Guy thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, me
it
too.
still is. It still
Yeah?
is. I fight it, but then, when I'm in the room with them, it's like, God damn it, I love these people so much, and it's like I would do anything for them, So it ends up
How old are
becoming
your kids?
7 and 4,
Right.
and my wife is my age.
Yeah.
And we knew each other since grade 7, so it's like the craziest part about the whole journey is still that I feel like I have so many regrets, but I think we mentioned this last time too, but it's like no greater regret would have been if I didn't choose to have a family, or if I didn't choose to get married and be with the love of my life kind of thing, So it's like with music was so ego driven that now it's like I'm creating for purpose, just to get it out of my head so that I can go on normal living, because if creativity hits you, it's like having your window open and a gust of wind shoots in, and if you don't do anything with that creativity, it will leave your soul or your being and it'll go to the neighbor and the neighbor will do something really cool in a month from now, and they won't even know where the fuck did that come from. Like it just shit out. It just shit it out. And it was like, that was my fucking creativity that I let that go. I didn't do shit with it. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting way to think about it, but I mean that the problem is when you turn that on its head, that means every time you see somebody else do something creative, you wish it was you, and that's the only part I don't like. And look, I struggle with that too, right?
Yeah.
This is a human thing, right? You get on Facebook and you haven't done something in a week, a month, a year, whatever it's been, and people that you know and respect and admire and came up with and worked with start doing something, and when you should be going, fuck, that's awesome, instead you go, fuck, why wasn't it me?
Yeah.
And when you talk about gratitude, that's a piece you gotta pull together.
Absolutely.
Too, right?
Absolutely, 100%. 100%.
It's
a struggle. It's a fight.
So it's that entire struggle, that piece of it is so fascinating to me.
Well, I think that you could be quite peaceful and zen and not worry about the creative component, but that wouldn't be me. And honestly, right? Like it's crazy. So it's like, yeah, when I hear ideas and they pop up in my head, if I don't go downstairs right away and transcribe that, it leaves, and I owe that idea and that creative. I owe to that. You know what I mean? Like I need to focus on that. I need to put some time and effort into that, because that shit like the idea or the creative thing picked you as the conduit. It came to you, and if you don't do something with it, it leaves you and it finds somebody who will.
It's an interesting mindset. I don't know that I like there's pieces of that that's still woohoo bullshit to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think that's just the way I wrap. Like I'm not calling. It's the way I wrap my head around. You okay?
Yeah, I got a Charlie horse.
Oh, you all right? That's the worst, man.
Oh, yeah.
for me, a lot of it is just sort of because there's always like for me artistically, there's always this sort of like tumult. There's always this storm of ideas and sort of directions, and especially because I play in a bunch of different mediums, that storm gets sort of mixed up in a bunch of ways. Like instead of having a creative idea that can be focused on a guitar, I have a creative concept that needs to be sort of put out, and it's like which is the best medium to put that out. So it doesn't for me feel like I'm grabbing a hold of something that's flowing through. To me, it's sort of more of focusing a concept.
Yep, I get you. I always thought that, but you know, I found that I was putting myself in dark places.
Yeah.
You know, by doing that, I found that like, you know, I wouldn't come up for days. You know, if I focused too hard on it, it was like I really let loose at this point. I've like let go of a lot of the focus. You know, I'm not thinking about it too much. It was just at that point when lockdown was imminent and it was happening. You know, I think I hit Walmart. You know, I don't know, like fucking like the day of, and I'm just like, I gotta go get my shit, and like I'm gonna be in here for a while, and like I just remember buying a Speedo and fucking like underwear and socks, and I was good, you know, and maybe like jar of greens or whatever, like powdered greens, wheatgrass or whatever, and then I was good. Nicorette too, because I decided to quit smoking.
Okay.
Too, so I stopped. I was like 5 months now, 4 months.
Good for you.
No cigs.
So talk to me the writing process. You're writing every day as you're going through all of these changes and stuff. Yeah. When does it become the book?
Yeah. So the book became something. I broke my wrist and I started, you know, using time off, you know, to kind of like write. I was able to still type and stuff, but I wrote every morning. You know, I felt like waking up at 5 a.m. gave me an opportunity to do things for myself before the chaos of the day and everybody else in my family, like, you know, wants something from you. Rather than waking up at 9 or 8 or 7, like to somebody peeling your eyelids open and saying, "Daddy, daddy, daddy." And now I'm behind the ball or whatever, you know, for the rest of the day. Like I'm chasing, trying to get ahead, you know, and so I noticed that if I wake up at 5, I can get everything I need to get done in order for my day to just to kill it, just to crush it, you know, and that was working, and you know, I'd be writing. I'd start off with some exercise, like having my bulletproof coffee, and yeah, it just write. I was so in, like I was right in the zone, you know, and I started writing basically two separate books. They were kind of offshoots of each other, but I noticed that when I was writing it, it was heavily focused on the music industry and more of like memoirs in a way where I was learning lessons, you know, mistakes basically I made and how I would rectify them. But then at the same time, I was including those posts, you know, and the way I was feeling. So I had to kind of separate the two, both being written on the same story, right? And I realized, like, I'm like, man, 400 pages. Like, if I split it each is 200. Perfect, you know, like that's great. I got 2 books. So then it got it got signed to a publishing company, Gray Borders.
Okay.
For
Sweet.
So it's coming out. It's just this COVID thing really kind of
slows everything.
Slammed it down, man. It was like, yeah. So
what's it called?
Mistakes I've Made.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Make sure
experience I've gained.
when it comes out, make sure you pop over links and stuff, and make sure that we get it out to
100%.
I'm really excited to read it because I really enjoyed reading a lot of your the philosophical side of what you were writing through at that time. Are you still doing it?
Once in a while.
Because it's to keep up with how things are changing constantly online.
It slowed down. Yeah, it slowed down a lot. Like it just things became very important to just try to figure out how we're gonna do this. You know, like how we're living and stuff. Now it's very difficult. you know, people, I don't know if people like kind of say that it isn't and it's just easy. It's like, I'm guessing you don't have kids. Like, I'm guessing that your kids aren't at an age where they're crying fucking their eyes out because they miss their friends and they can't see their friends and stuff. And, you know, it's these, yes, I suppose I could be in, you know, one of those parents that just, you know, yeah, we've set up play dates and stuff, like, and, you know, distanced, you know, socially and all that stuff. Like, we're doing that, you know what I mean? So it's I've never been cleaner.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because and I'll be frank with you. We'll say it out loud. Put it right on the table here. When you walked up, it was you shake hand, fist bump, give you a hug, like all of the different things, and then like coming here to sit on my porch, and I'm gonna put this live out there. It's all good. I've played this game before. I'm waiting for the comments to come in. How come you guys aren't X? Da 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 da. We're distance. We're in a backyard. We're in the open spaces. Like I think a lot of people take the idea of guidance as like this is like the hard and fast rule. And the problem is that people take it too far on both ends. Like this is the only way you can do, and then the other side saying, "Well, you're not going to make me wear a mask." It's like,
yeah, wear the fucking mask.
Take a breath. Yeah. Just take a breath. Not too deep, and if you're close to somebody.
That's right.
But take a breath. The world is going to be different, but that's always true.
Yeah.
This is just a big different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wear my mask. Like I wear it. I brought it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure what this was going to look like, but then you know. I don't know. I'm using my own judgment. You know,
you have to. It's the only way you can.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, where you have to, wear it.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's not difficult when you walk into a store to throw it on. And I see these copy and the copy and paste posts are the worst thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
But these long run on like, okay, I'm going to be a good citizen and wear my mask. I'm just looking for the expert to answer a few of these questions. It's like. A few of these questions is 50 questions, and I read up to 15 and had an answer for every one of them. Like, how intentionally obtuse do you need to be?
Right.
It's not that difficult. I didn't even mean to go onto a rant. This is the solving the world's problems part of it. Like, I get. No, I don't. I'm fed up with the conspiracy theory stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that the world doesn't operate in perfect harmony. That doesn't mean it works in perfect. Whatever the opposite of harmony is,
Yeah.
right? Like perfect dissonance. I don't think we need to spend so much time on Facebook, says the guy who built a career on Facebook.
Yeah.
I really find, I almost put up a post the other day as sort of like an ironic thing that like, I'm pretty sure that only stupid people are on Facebook anymore, myself included.
Yeah, sure. I know what you mean.
Like, it doesn't seem like anybody is talking about anything other than, like, the flavor of the day that is... And everybody's talking about how everybody is sheep because all you do is all the things that you keep seeing, which is the same thing that you've just seen 100 times.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. So I've taken over the conversation.
No, I was thinking about something like that earlier today. I was thinking about, like, the same idea, but, like, with politics. It being, like... the new driving force for everybody, like how we're gonna all connect now. It's like 10 years ago, we weren't talking about that shit. And it's like, when did it ever become so, you know, pertinent that like, you know, we're gonna decide our friendships and connections by, you know, who shares the same political view. When did I give a fuck about what your politics view was, you know? But the fact that everybody out there now is just spitting out their political views, it's like, you know what, like, oh well, you want to fucking hate me for my views, then fucking delete me or whatever. It's like, you know what, just the fact that you're talking about it, you know, and just pushing that view on people, and then, you know, looking for debates, looking for arguments, looking for all this shit. It's like, it's fucking, it's not just not worrisome, but it's like I said the other day, fucking having like social media jet lag. Like, I'm fucking tired, man. I'm tired of all of it. Like, it's like, why can't we fucking talk about Black Sabbath?
Right.
Like, let's just talk about how awesome Sabbath was. It's like, why do we have to fucking talk about orange people and and whatever else?
Yeah,
it's stupid.
And it's funny because like it's not even so much that we have to. It's just that we do. Like there's it. I don't want to point a finger. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I'm part of it too.
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
I get sucked up into this shit too. Like
Oh, I know somebody's watching in this.
Yeah.
Stupid, you stupid motherfucker!
Right.
And they just start
Yeah.
posting about Trump again, right? Or like
Yeah.
whatever, politics. They'll
Yeah.
start It's like I don't care as much because I see that the quality of my life, way better when I'm not thinking about stuff that's going on. Like, I don't watch the media, I don't watch the news, because it's not choosing to live under a rock. It's not choosing to be ignorant or naive or anything, but like, yeah, there is comfort in ignorance being bliss. There is some comfort to that, but
there's also this. It's this idea about effectiveness that keeps coming back to me too. It's like I would love to solve all of the world's problems, but like, what part of my day do I carve out of trying to solve my own problems? Right?
5 a.m.
Yeah, like
5 a.m.
Yeah.
That's it.
But no, the 5
No, I
a.m.
know.
is you trying to figure out your own thoughts about your own stuff, whatever. The rest of the day is your problems.
That's it.
What part of that do you carve out to solve the rest of the world's problems?
Yeah.
Well, 11 a.m. on Sunday. Anyway, sorry.
Nice plug. Yeah. No, that's it, man. Like, I think one of the biggest things with like that whole stuff is that like we don't have answers. Nobody. I mean.
That's the other part that really kills me is the idea that people talk about this stuff like there is either a right or a wrong answer, and that right or wrong answer was determined before any of this happened. Like well, they said don't wear masks. Now they're saying my favorite response on that actually came from Clinton Hammond was fucking experts. Today they'll say it's Monday, tomorrow they'll say it's Tuesday. What's next? Wednesday? Like
Nice. I love it.
but it's like how do you just I don't know, and I don't know that it's my job, but it's the frustration of like how do you get people to even like think beyond it's like trying to convince people that words aren't a thing, they're just a symbol of an idea.
Yeah.
If people think there's permanence to a word, it's really tough to get them to think about it the other way.
Yeah.
It frustrates me very much.
It's interesting though. It's really interesting.
Because you're a guy that plays with words. I thought that might be. Or do you think about words as objects?
I like Mike Williams, the singer from I Hate God. I like what he says about it. He's like, words are like my lyrics are like bullets.
Okay.
He's like they're coming for you. Like, it's like just stick it right to your head and just fire, and when you hear their music, that's the kind of attitude they take, right? And it's like, for me, language is language. Like I speak Serbian fluently as well.
Oh, that's right too. Yeah.
And read Cyrillic.
Being able to understand, especially reading,
Yeah.
other languages, really puts really disassociates you from the permanence of a word.
I agree.
Right?
Absolutely. Actually, just the fact that we had mentioned that, I realized like what you're talking about.
Okay.
Like, with like the words, because like there is a certain way that you could be taken because of how you speak or what you're saying to people, but for the most part, it's always been my level of like English. I learned English early, right?
Okay.
Through school, never through my parents. My parents
Your parents are
spoke
first,
Serbian.
like your parents.
My dad's second generation. I'm second generation Canadian, but he was born in Montreal. But my mom, being from over there, she, speaking Serbian in the house, and that's like what the first language under our roof was.
Right.
So it's like there's a lot of sentence structures and things that I say that are very, very funny and like different. They don't exactly compute. They don't make sense sometimes, but it's like it comes from that, where
Right.
it's like things are being like translated, and it comes out funny.
Mm-hmm.
But no, in terms of like, with how people take such a filthy stand on Facebook with the things they say, and like they don't give a fuck. Like they have no fucks, you know. No,
Yeah.
they don't care. Like how bad like this shit can like hurt somebody or what. And I don't know, man. I just find it weird because I know some of these people. I've known some of these people for 20, 30 years, and it's like wow, I find it really weird because in person you would never say something like you would never even have this discussion with somebody. You wouldn't even have the balls to do it.
See, and I've got the opposite issue because I
Tell me.
know a lot of people that talk the way they talk on Facebook and will happily talk that way in private
Right.
as well. Now, Facebook to them is private because
That's
they've got
funny.
50 people,
Yeah.
so it really is.
I guess.
It's
but
like having a loud, obnoxious conversation in a bar,
that's what I was saying the other day.
right?
I was saying the same thing the other day.
And and I mean it's like having a loud, obnoxious conversation at a family party.
Sure,
Because
but
you,
at
like-
what point?
yeah.
At what point does somebody say, you know? Okay, so you say something out there, and
Yeah.
now you're having this debate with somebody, and it's just dropping comments seconds. You're watching in real time. Somebody posts that Michael Jackson popcorn,
Right,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
That meme, and then it's like all these people are just dropping comments, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, like this is super heated, very very interesting. I'm loving it. But at a bar, if this was a conversation at a bar, at what point does that motherfucker over there think that he's able to fucking come in here and invite himself into the conversation and start fucking bitching and moaning and
Yep.
yelling and all this shit? And it's like, only difference is that the platform is made so that everybody can kind of piss in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it's great, but it's like,
And that's really what it is, right? It's this idea because like going back to what we were talking about before, like the changes that I make in my social media stuff is like thoughts like that.
yeah.
So like,
Oh, I read 'em.
The
I read 'em.
And I don't succeed all the time, but when I find myself writing out one of my responses, I start looking at where I'm responding. If I'm
Okay.
responding to you on your page or somebody else's page or whatever, I try.
To do the respectful.
I try to pull out any of the sort of like witty, win a conversation, that I try to pull out any of that stuff.
Okay.
You come trampling on my page, motherfucker.
That's it, man.
None of that gets
Yeah,
pulled,
yeah.
and it's just like, and I mean, I don't know if that's good, bad, or whatever, but it's just kind of like trying to be respectful in public, trying to be like, hey, you came to my house.
I'll delete shit like that all the time. Like
Yeah.
on other
write it
people's
all.
page.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh.
Like, yes, I've done that where you write something and then you're like, delete it, because how is my life gonna be any better
Right.
if I fucking
Yeah,
put
yeah,
this
yeah.
out there? But then what I do is like I'll find myself slammed in between this conversation or an argument, and then I'll start posting, and then I'm like, you know, afterwards I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna delete my comments, you know, because I said what I said.
Yeah.
I don't need it to be now fucking imprinted. Nobody 20 years ago, we weren't writing our conversations to each other so that everything could be fucking graced in the history books.
Not everybody.
Well, whatever, but like, just saying, you know, like, you know, when you're in a conversation at a bar and stuff, right? Like, you know, that's where most of my networking took place.
Yeah.
You know, so when you're speaking and you're having conversations, and you could be in a circle with people having a conversation, and so it's like simulating the essentially what's going on you know, on your wall.
Right.
You know, that
See,
stuff
I
stays
almost-
between those 5 people.
Yeah.
And then nobody fucking set out a recorder, you know, and has it now for perpetuity. You know what
I
mean, to
totally
listen to.
understand that perspective on it. For me, it's kind of the other thing. Like, if I said it, I want it to be part of the record because I'm not afraid of the idea that my mind changes over time.
That's great. That's,
You know what I mean? Like
that's how you have to be, I
That's
guess.
actually how I want to be. I want to be able to, and that's always sort of been even the philosophy behind like the podcast and stuff. Like, yeah, okay, we've experimented with putting out highlights and to kind of play with the idea of getting more
Format.
viewership and all of that
Sure.
stuff. But ultimately, what I put out are long format things because these aren't simple conversations. And I mean, it's not even just Facebook, but finding out who you are
Yeah.
isn't a 5-minute conversation. Finding
No.
out about you know, the things that you enjoy, that motivate you, that send you down the paths that you are, that your history, like anybody that I talk to with these conversations, or even just your thoughts on what's happening in the world around you, they're not 5-minute conversations.
No, and I think with a lot of what goes on online, especially with like what we're talking about with like the history books or like the records or being on the record, always needing to be on the record. It's like you can have that opinion. It'll change over time, and it's interesting to see back on memories like with where your mind was back then. But still, it's a level of we're dabbling in a digital world now where things are kind of changing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced that it's for the better.
Oh, okay.
I really do think that you get brain fatigue, sitting there having Zoom conversations with people and not having face-to-face interactions, body to body kind of thing, where it's like I'm feeling your energy, you're feeling mine on a fucking camera. I'm staring at that camera.
Mm-hmm.
I'm staring at it. When I stare at the camera, I'm not looking at the person in the camera,
right,
like that's on the other side,
yep,
but they can see me staring into their eyes because I'm looking in a fucking lens.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at them on the Skype, my eyes are off.
Yeah.
They're not there, right? And then I'll find myself drifting into the little box of me in the
right
corner. You know what I mean? And
I always shut that shit off.
And while I'm talking, I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
And it's like, when did this become like fucking normal?
But that's the thing. I don't think that when did it become normal? I don't know, about 10 years from now.
That's it. Seriously. Fucking right.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you said it, because that's exactly what the answer is. It's not normal right now, but it will be.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
I know.
You know what I mean? And it's not the end of the world, and it's going to be fucking weird for us. I got my mom calling me up saying, like, oh, can you come help me? There's a problem with something broke on the computer. And the answer was she didn't know that the minimize button was a thing.
Yeah, awesome.
And that you could maximize it, right? Like, why? Because her growing up, none of this stuff existed. The fact that she's using it to pay her bills and all of that stuff is
wild,
right?
Yeah.
And like, we live in the future, and the fact is, we will always live in the future.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I know.
Like, we're always where we were yesterday.
We're the litmus test right now, man. It's crazy.
I don't.
Fucking China's been wearing masks for fucking decades.
Yeah, right. It's not new.
Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Right?
So it's interesting how we're just catching up.
It's so funny too, because like a lot of the mask conversation is about, like, you can't take away my rights, and the government control and all of that, and there's going to be people that say or do whatever, and fine, have your conversation. I'm probably not going to dip into it. But it's like the idea of controlling, like the idea of they're gonna control you to do what? Like, what's the, like, I've never had anybody who goes down that road explain to me an end game. Like, they want to control all the money. You mean the billionaires who have all of the money?
Yeah.
What's the? There's no, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, there's no. It's just everybody who has money is a psychopath who toys with human lives. Like, I know people who have a lot of money. They're not like that.
Yeah.
It's so to me, it's you talk about China, and there's this very weird sort of like headspace I'm at, because I'm not a fan of the way the Chinese government behaves in general, from the things that I understand, right? But what I know about Chinese society is the Chinese government doesn't need to do much. The Chinese society kind of takes care of itself a lot.
I don't know anything.
Yeah, it's like, and I only know that from very brief, like, and I'm sure now if anybody is watching this, thank you, and I appreciate your time. I don't need the links to all of the horrific things that China does. I'm aware, but like, there's a bunch of horrific things that happen here, and it's like, how much of that pointing at the horrific thing is ignoring all of the things that work really well? It gets to be so confusing.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
I stay away from it all, man. It's like, at some point, I gotta cap off my intelligence at a certain level, and I'm not going over it, and I'm cool with that,
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Like, I don't know. It's
I hate not knowing. That's my big thing. Like, for me,
I'm pretty good with it.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it.
good with like not remembering shit. So, not knowing stuff is actually a blessing in disguise for me.
Yeah.
So it's actually really good. I can't tell you how much better my life is because of it. And if it's perception is reality, my reality's solid. It's solid because what's being brought into my world, if I sit there and watch, doesn't matter, right? Like any side of the media that you watch, it's like, I don't want to believe either any side. I don't care.
I'm okay with all of that, and I think it's the anyway. There's a principle. I'm about to lose the internet here because I'm going to bring up Nazis, but I'm okay with that right up until I put my head, that thought process into the head of a guy sitting in a living room in 1932 or whatever the right year is to be pinpointing it. Of just as Hitler's kind of doing his shit. Yeah. At what point do you have to poke your head out the window and go, fuck? I don't think we're there yet.
No.
But there's got to be a point where that has to come, right?
The only thing out of all of like what I could probably say that maybe indisputable is that the system has to break before it can be fixed.
Right.
So they got to get this guy in. They got to reelect him. They have to fuck this whole thing up so that they can build from the ground up again and start it over. However long that takes, wherever they're at for that, but like it's got to break. So they probably picked the right guy.
Well, it's funny that you put it that way because that's the one thing, and I don't know if this might have been a post that I started writing and then deleted because I don't really know how to say it. But you're saying it exactly right, and it's like, the funny thing is that all of the people who elected Trump wanted him to do a specific thing, and he's going to do it, but not in the way that they thought he was going to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you wanted the system destroyed. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to look the way you thought it was going to look now.
Sure. Yeah, you didn't want a politician, so you brought him in. Ladies and gentlemen, after 100 days in office, whatever, we have ourselves a politician. You know what I mean? And he's being groomed to do that. He doesn't want to stand, on that side of things, and he wants to kind of go rogue. And who knows? Maybe he's not going rogue. Maybe he's actually got people behind him that are, but whatever it is, I fear that it's going to be another 4 years, and that's fine.
I was worried. I would have agreed with you right up until the COVID thing. I think this COVID thing's going to fuck him, but I mean, I didn't think he was going to win in the first place. So what's my opinion worth
right.
this? Like, I wouldn't put a bet on it either way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the one hope that I have is the
There's
fact
sites that you can bet on that shit.
Oh no! Yeah, I'm a poker player. I'm well aware of all of them.
Nice.
But I would. That's not a bet I would place for sure. I also would not bet on the success of the U.S. in the next 25 years. At this point, I don't care who you put in now. Now whatever happens is going to be rebuilding. They're not going to be, and I mean that's if they get started rebuilding next year.
Yeah, I'm like I said, like I love my American friends very much.
Yeah.
But I don't abide by like the whole politics conversation. Like I really hate that because it's like I got friends from the States that are truly patriotic, and I would never want to offend them, which is it's inevitable though, because there's just so much going on right now that like everybody's got an opinion on something, and that's I think where it all kind of boils down for me. It's like I don't want to share that. I don't want to have that opinion. I don't want to have an opinion that speaks to people where it becomes a divide that's going on right now. Like this is also fucked up to me. Like it's really fucked up. Like I would love to just not have to talk about where people stand on like the mask thing or like whatever. I fucking love so many people out there that like fucking don't want to wear masks. You know what I mean? But like that's fine.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool.
I put myself
and then the politics thing. Like I was like just to kind of bookend it was like And with the politics thing, it's like the naivety that I have. It's out of a good place. It's coming from an optimistic place. It's not the. I may sound like a pessimist, but it's optimism at its finest. I feel like, I do believe that shit can get better, and
Yeah.
things will get better, but like fuck, it ain't gonna be for a while. And for me, like, you can watch all the media and be as up to date and current on all the events that are going on in the world. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to change what's out there. All that does is it puts another layer of stress on your brain, on your body, that eventually fucking plays a toll in your blood pressure, plays a toll in your fucking anxiety, and all these other things. And then it's like, do I care that, like, that, I'm just as, on the same level, and like intelligence wise, like with you, it's like, I give a shit less if I can have this conversation or not. You know what I mean? So it's like all of that is just absolutely fucking nuts. Let's just agree that the world is fucking chaotic. It always has been, I guess. We're just at an age now where we're fucking seeing it far more. I didn't give a shit about it 20 years ago. I try not to give a shit about it now, but like, it's like, we're just older. Things are different, and in 10 years from now, things are going to be different as well. But our kids aren't going to fucking...
I'm going to completely change gears here, and the people who are watching might kind of just go, what? But this is staying exactly on topic of what you're talking about. I saw somebody the other day. He had to be older than me. So, like, late 40s, early 50s. Helmet on, elbow pads, knee pads. On a skateboard for clearly one of the first times in his life.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and went, yeah, old people don't wear fedoras and suits anymore. Like, what old people are isn't a thing. What old people are old versions of their younger selves. And that's all we are. That's all it's ever been.
Yeah,
it was that before.
Yeah.
They wore fedoras and suits because they wore fedoras and suits.
Their whole lives.
Not because they were old.
Yeah. Well, 20 years ago,
Right?
yeah. Like,
You're sitting here with that backwards baseball cap, and we both got hoodies on.
Yeah.
In our 40s, aren't we supposed to have, like, because my 40-year-old dad was wearing a golf shirt and a da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? Like, that stylistic idea, that identity of who you are, including who you are, doesn't change. It just matures.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Right?
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. It's, it's interesting because, the times, right? I couldn't see myself not playing music in 20 years from now. I couldn't see that.
Yeah.
That seems to be... How you doing?
That's Peter. He's a great man.
Yeah. Like, I couldn't see myself not playing music. So, being a rad senior citizen is something I strive to at this point, which is weird.
I remember back, like, the early days of memes and stuff, like, even before they were called memes, where there were pictures of, like, or not even pictures, but just the idea of, like, oh, tattoos are becoming popular now. What do you think you're gonna look like when you're 70 with your old stretched out tattoos? And I remember the first time I saw a picture of, like, somebody, gray haired, whatever, but just looking cool as fuck with a bunch of tattoos, with the quote saying, "What are you gonna do when you're old and tattooed? Be cool as fuck."
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I could see myself, like, walking past, like, a mirror or something in my senior years and just be like, keep walking, like, every time, like, what do I care? What do I care at that age?
Yeah.
What do I look like? Fucking my tattoos are gonna look like bulldogs. Big deal. Big deal. Who am I fucking trying to impress at that year? At that age.
Yeah, at that point, the stories are worth more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And if people want to hear them, you come here. You tell them,
My friend.
Cheers, bro.
Thank you so much. Folks, thanks for hanging out with me and Al on my teeny tiny deck. We're going to make this a weekly thing. I'm going to be back here next week. Have a new project that we're releasing, myself with Tamara Kowalska and Darcy Shannon and Dylan Rabideau. I think I got his last name right. I'm sorry, Dylan. I'm a jerk. But anyway, we're going to tell you more about that next week, and it's starting to rain here anyway, so we're going to pack it up. Thank you for hanging out with us this long. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notifications and all the other things that make people see the stuff that we're doing. Thanks for hanging out.